find such a love at our age. Whoever thought we could dance on a thrilling...
Welcome to Couples Therapy in 7 Words. I'm your co-host, Judy Alexander, and I'm here with my husband, Dr. Bruce Chalmer.
Hello, Judy. Hello, viewers and listeners. Judy, what is today's title?
Soulful Power, an interview with Christian de la Huerta.
So stay tuned for that interview with Christian de la Huerta. He is I guess, what does he say? Personal transformation expert is sort of what he talks about. We talked all about, he has actually 2 books out, which you'll hear about in the podcast. And among the things, I think especially, sort of a little teaser there, is his views on respective sort of masculinity and femininity and roles for men and women. And anyway, check out our interview.
Yes.
Before we get to the interview, want to put in a plug for our books, of course.
Right.
Judy had a successful, I should say, Laria Zilber, your alter ego.
My alter ego.
Had a successful book signing at Barnes & Noble recently.
Yes, I did.
And
of
that's
the
the book.
Blue Tent, Erotic Tales from the Bible.
Yes, so if you like erotica and like the Bible and like Judy, which I certainly do, all of the above actually, then you will really enjoy that book. It's beautifully written, and so do get a hold of that. Also, get a hold of my books. I have a few out, and I have one coming, which I am still looking for people who are interested in possibly being readers of my upcoming book, which the title of which is going to be, I'm pretty sure, The Passion Paradox. We're going to do another podcast not too long from now, not today, but we're going to do another podcast where we talk some about what I talk about in that book. We already did one, and there's another particular aspect of it we'll get into.
But you know, in the meantime, you can certainly avail yourself of Bruce's 3 other books that deal with couples.
They do, and I will say, if I don't mind blowing my own horn a little bit, that a lot of folks have found them really helpful. I've actually, numbers of people have come to me having read the book. Numbers of people have gone to the book after having come to me, and then there's lots of people who don't know me at all, but they've read the book and they've sent me some feedback and said, well, it was really helpful. So do indeed check that out. So let's get on with our interview.
Let's do that.
And we'll see you on the other side.
Our guest today is Christian de la Huerta. Christian is a personal transformation expert with over 3 decades of experience. Born in Havana, Cuba, Christian emigrated to the United States with his family when he was 10 to escape communism. By his late 20s, Christian had all the trappings of success, but none of it seemed enough. He was missing a spiritual connection and a sense of purpose. He embarked on a personal journey of healing and transformation, and he began to help others along the path. His latest book is Awakening the Soul of Power. Christian, welcome to Couples Therapy in 7 Words.
Hey, Judy. Hey, Bruce. How are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thanks for coming on. So we always like to start with our guests by asking, tell us something about your own journey. How did you get into the work you do?
Well, you know, as Judy was referencing, it had me thinking that I've always had that sense of mission. I've always had a sense of knowing that I was here to do something, to make a difference in real human lives, to help people have more successful lives and relationships that actually have a chance of working. It's looked different ways at different points, so I translated it differently. Like at one point, I thought I was going to be a priest. I came out of a very Catholic environment. When I was a kid, that's what I thought I was going to do with my life. Then my dad was a psychiatrist, and I was on a track to get a PhD in psychology, so I thought that would be it. And then realized that neither one of those was big enough to contain all of me. And so I ended up doing my own special hybrid of spiritually based psycho-spiritual coaching with healing modalities like breath work that are really efficient because it addresses both the cognitive understanding and then actually heals the trauma that has been somaticized that now lives in the body, no longer in the mind.
So do you have a practice in this field?
I do. I have a
Tell
coaching
us about
practice.
that.
I see people privately.
Uh-huh.
I do some coaching online, and then I do, I've been doing retreats and workshops for the last over 30 years, minus those few years during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. So you have talked about like misconceptions people have about love and relationships. Of course, our podcast is all about relationships. That's the thing. I have to mention by that when you talked about almost getting a PhD in psychology, speaking as one myself, only crazy people do that. So it's good that you didn't do that. You have to
That's
be
funny.
totally crazy to do something strange like that. Anyway,
That's
yes.
funny.
What are misconceptions people have about love and relationships?
Well, I mean, there's so many. I have a whole book about that, but we can mention a couple of them. One of the main mistakes that we tend to make in relationship is whenever we seek fulfillment, happiness from the relationship. To me, that's not a good outcome. Um, so whenever we're approaching the relationship, is like, you are gonna make me happy. It's like, yikes, wow. That's not fair to put that responsibility on anybody else or on the relationship. So that's one way that we tend to approach relationships in a way that don't tend to have a very good effect. So if we're approaching a relationship consciously, that means that we take responsibility for our own happiness, and that then the relationship becomes something else. It becomes an opportunity for growth, an opportunity. Not only do we get to share life with and all the benefits of being in relationship with somebody else, have, sharing intimacy, companionship, family, sex, all those good things. Then what? How do we use that relationship as a way to speed up, to forward our own process of growth and evolution and healing? That's one of the misunderstandings. Another one is we confuse love. We don't really know what love means, and we tend to confuse the feeling, the emotion of love, with the actual work and practice of loving.
Yeah.
And this is, paraphrasing Scott Peck in The Road Less Traveled. Um, but he talks about how he defines love in a really interesting way, right? Because we can't always go by the feeling, right? Sometimes, let's think of this, of disciplining a child. You can't have more sugar, or you can't run into that busy street. It doesn't feel good, right? Disciplining a child never feels good, but it's an act of love. Right? We're doing something for their higher good. So Scott Peck talks about how if we're not going to go by the feeling, how do we define love? And defines it as an act. And he talks about how love is when we place ourselves outside of our comfort zone for the sake of the spiritual growth of another human being. And that's a deep and profound way of looking at love.
Yeah, that is a nice way of doing it. I immediately was thinking of we come from a Jewish context. We're both Jewish, and we have when I think about the biblical command, "V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha," you shall love the Lord your God. In it, rabbis will often talk about the fact that the love they're talking about isn't the sense of emotional love; it's the sense of action. It's that active love, and indeed, in the spirit of loving someone as a way to elevate them. And it's interesting when you're talking about what you can get from a relationship when you're no longer bound by the idea that the relationship has to satisfy all your needs and wants. One of the things you can do is that it's an opportunity for that kind of giving, to elevate another in the interest of their growth and then in the interest of making the world a better place. Does that
Yeah, that's
that
beautiful.
resonate with
I love how you expanded the definition of love in that way, from a religious perspective. Beautiful. Yeah, I tell clients and people, if you want to shine a light on those blind spots that you're never going to see in ourselves, because that's the definition of a blind spot. Get in a relationship, because we're so good at finding each other's buttons and pressing them.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your book, Awakening the Soul of Power.
Well, that is actually the previous book. The one that just came out is on
Oh.
relationships, and it's called Conscious Love: Transforming Our
Ah,
Relationship to
okay.
Relationships.
I
The
must
Power
have got
book.
that from an old profile or something.
Yeah. No,
A
that's
dated
great.
book.
Well, talk to us about that one and then talk to us about your new one.
Yeah.
The Power book talks about how we all have an ambivalent, or so let's say most of us, I hate to speak in generalizations, so most of us have an ambivalent relationship to power. Part of us wants it and part of us is afraid of it. And no wonder, like how many we're afraid that we might abuse it, and how many abuses of power have each of us witnessed in our lives, not only in our personal lives, but also in the macro. All we got to do is
Sure.
turn on the news on any given day
Yeah.
to witness at least, if not multiple, abuses of power. Um, and so, and then we also have been conditioned to believe that power is a bad thing. You know, with quotes like "power corrupts," and "absolute power corrupts absolutely," and "what good
Mhm.
soul wants to be corrupted?" But what they didn't tell us about that is that Lord Acton, who spoke those words, was speaking specifically about political power,
Yes.
not the
I
kind
think
of
he said tends
personal
to,
power.
didn't he? Didn't he say
Pardon?
tends to? Even he wasn't absolute. Or am I misremembering? Didn't he say power tends to corrupt, or am I misremembering that?
I don't think, I think he, no, he said absolute, and absolute power corrupts
Corrupts
absolutely. So
absolutely. Yeah, he did that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think,
Yeah.
but he was speaking about political power.
Absolutely. Yes, of
Mhm.
course. Yeah.
And I can get that.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
that. Why he would say something like that.
hmm
And, but so when you combine all that with also the fact that we've been conditioned to be afraid of our emotions, so we run away from anything that could lead to, you know, our interpretation of conflict, and so we suppress all those feelings. So we combine all that stuff together. What happens is we end up giving our power away, our innate, inherent power that nobody can give to us. Nobody can take it away. We are the only ones who give it away. And to me, that's the tragic part, the reasons for which we give it away. Like, how many times have we said yes when inside it's really not okay with us? Inside it's a no.
Mhm.
So we override our preferences, even our dreams or goals, and we settle for an illusion of acceptance, a pseudo as acceptance, and we settle for crumbs of pseudo love. And it's not a good strategy.
Mm.
And now tell us about your new book, the one that whose title we don't have yet. So tell us again.
You say
So the new
conscious love?
book is Conscious Love,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Transforming Our Relationship to Relationships.
Ah.
So transforming how we approach relationship to connecting to what we were talking about before. You know, how
Mhm.
we often approach relationships with unrealistic expectations, that we're looking for somebody to make us happy, to complete us, that we often end up settling for less, because if we're not valuing ourselves enough, and many of us are running away from, you know, from the possibility of being alone. We're afraid of being alone. So again, we override our deepest feelings and desires, and we settle for less, for relationships that don't really nourish us. And you know that never works either, because then it's a recipe for resentment and for conflict.
So what
Um,
should we be looking for when we're looking for a relationship?
you know, I think the wisest approach to relationship is when we take full ownership and responsibility for our happiness, so that we don't add that weight and that responsibility for making ourselves happy on the relationship or another person. So when we approach it from that healthy perspective, that we know we are only responsible for, or that only we are responsible for our happiness, then that kind of frees up the relationship. And for me, there are a couple of levels of that. Like on one hand, at one level, we can say, all right, you know, maybe the other person doesn't want to play at the same level. And we can say, all right, well, I've got those basic human needs for love and companionship and intimacy. And there's enough about the relationship that works. Then I can focus the rest of my time, my energy, my attention, my resources on my own process of growth and evolution, which I think ultimately is what we're here for. What I would look for in a relationship is what Scott Peck refers to as a level two, which means that both partners are in agreement and they make a pact to use the relationship as an opportunity for growth. So rather than doing the immediate, like somebody says something that we don't like or that hurts us, and we immediately point the finger and do something. You did this, you do that, you always did this, you never do that. Or we find one of their buttons and get them back. Rather than doing that, we feel the ouch of whatever they did or said, and look at it as an opportunity for growth. Like, right, why did that hurt, right? Why is it that behavior, whatever they said, hurt me? Like it, and and then begin to look for patterns. Why do I keep attracting the same kind of argument or the same kind of relationship that sometimes feels like we're in the same boring movie, only with a different actor, a different co-lead, but the same kind of patterns, the same kind of arguments, the same kind of stuff coming up over and over again. So at some point, it would behoove us to say there's only one common denominator in every one of those arguments, in every one of those relationships, and it's right here. So
Right.
why? What is it? And the thing is that a lot of this stuff, a lot of these patterns are subconscious. So we begin by becoming aware of why we do the things we do, and then we can bring a choice into it.
Wow.
Interesting.
So one of the things, and again, I don't know if this applies to the previous book or this one you've just been talking about, but you've mentioned that at least some of your message, it has special resonance for women. And at the risk of mansplaining to the woman in the conversation, I am sort of curious, like because I say things like that a lot too. So as you know,
You're the therapist here.
well, yeah. What do you mean by that? Like what are some
Well,
of the things?
that was in the pertaining to the power book.
Yeah.
And we all have issues around power. I think we all struggle with the question about that. But I dedicated that book to women because, not to idealize women, not to put women up on a pedestal, certainly not to give women more crap to clean up in this mess that we have made of our world. But because as a
What's the
world,
matter? Come on, get with it here. Sorry, go ahead.
as a species, we've been functioning very much off balance between the masculine and the feminine energies that course through everything, including every single one of us.
Yeah.
And in this planet, for whatever reason, we have turned the feminine into something less than, into weakness. And there's so much faulty thinking about that. Like, if you want to talk courage, power, resilience, let's talk about the power of creation that resides in a female body. And that also connects to what we were talking about before. We have turned the emotions into something weakness. And the conditioning begins at an early stage. Like, little boys don't cry. It's like, wait a minute, what is that? Like, not only does that imply that the feminine is weakness because they have emotions, because they feel, but the faulty thinking too is that the emotions are weakness. It's like, wait a minute, the emotions aren't strength, they're not weakness, they're not good, they're not bad, they're just energy, like everything else in creation, just energy. And we know that energy cannot be destroyed from physics. So all those attempts, all those countless times that we have stuffed our emotions, that we have tried not to feel, like, that stuff doesn't go away. And so it's a problem because we stuff and we stuff and we stuff, and then the next poor unfortunate soul says something to us the wrong way, and boom, volcanic eruption. Or stuff, and then those energies have to come out one way or the other, and it turns out into physical symptoms. It starts seeping out and turning into illness, into disease. So not a good strategy. And by the way, I'm not advocating that women are superior, not at all. I'm not putting men down at all when I say this, but I think it's just balance that we're looking for. I believe that when women are in 50% of power in this world, we're going to have a very different relationship to war and poverty and hunger and social justice and education, how we treat the environment, to all of it. So for me, it's a strategic practice to ensure our own survival as a species.
Amen. Well, yes, there is a huge power imbalance, but do you find that when you see in relationships a big power imbalance? Well, I'm not even sure where I'm going with this, because you can't have two people in power. Somebody's got to I don't want to say step back or have less power, but find an equilibrium there. So
That's
when
it.
you encounter couples, what do you find? How do you coach them through finding that equilibrium without a man feeling that he's giving up his masculinity if he's opening himself up to giving his wife, let's say a heterosexual relationship, he's opening to give his female partner more of that power balance.
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's about finding balance and finding
Mm.
equilibrium. And some of it is going to be, it's going to be different for every couple. Finding negotiation, right? Today we go for Chinese, tomorrow night we go for sushi. And that's just one superficial example. There's much deeper ways in which we have to find balance, but it's doable. And I think it's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think where it gets complicated and interesting, maybe that's what makes my work interesting. Between us, I'm the therapist, Judy is a retired educator, or as we sometimes say, I'm the therapist and she's the real person. Uh, but but often in working with couples, negotiating that is interesting because sometimes one or the other, and it could be either in a heterosexual couple, it could be either one or the other is wanting the other to assume more power, not less. And that becomes a struggle sometimes. And and I think especially certainly in well, in our lifetimes, we were both born in the 1950s. I was born earlier than you were. I'm a few years older, but remembering 1970s feminism, which changed the language so much, specific especially for women, it has left both a lot of men and women wondering, how are we supposed to do this balance thing? How are we supposed to maintain some degree of polarity, because the difference is sexy,
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
without either overrunning each other or turning each other into neutral, which neither one of us wants.
Well, I think that's what
Yeah.
we're seeing now with men not being able to assert themselves or find their place or figure out what does it mean to be a man in this age when
Yes.
women seem to be gaining more power. There are more women who are going to college. There are more women who are higher educated. They're now taking jobs where men used to dominate, like fields of law and medicine, accounting, even engineering is starting to build up that way. So how do you make men, well, I guess, feel like men?
Yeah.
Or do we need to redefine what it means to be a man when we're still in a society that says this is what it means to be a man?
Mm,
Because we're seeing a lot of
Yeah.
that, like on the right. Sorry,
Beautiful. I think you,
I
you
don't mean
nail
to
it
get
on the head.
political here, but I think a lot of the backlash that we're seeing is because men are being told, well, you can't be like that
Yeah.
anymore. And I think,
Yeah.
there's men do want to be like some, not every man, but a lot of men do want to be like that.
Yeah, I think we're you're absolutely right. I think you nailed it on the head again. It's like as women are regaining their powers, like more than 50% of graduates from college are women now, and then
Hmm.
40% of heterosexual households, the woman is out earning the man.
mhm.
So for
And
those
in the
men who
younger
are
cohorts, it's even over 50% now. In
okay,
some
that
younger
is
cohorts, I think of one where at least one has education. It's almost always not almost always, more often the woman. And yeah, women, there's a generation growing up, the first one since they've kept records of these things, where women are earning more than men. And neither men
yeah,
nor women know what to do about that.
right, because the men still have the identity of being the provider.
Yeah. And
That's what the man
the
has
numbers of
been
women I
traditionally.
hear, I mean, the women who will come in and say, who are the ones who are, the professionals earning like three times as much, and they are saying, I didn't think I'd want this, but I'm having kids and I'm resenting the fact that I have to be the one to work because I earn so much more.
Mm,
And, I didn't have kids to let my husband raise them, but, and it's not his fault. She's not even blaming him necessarily, but it's really, they haven't quite figured out how to handle that yet.
Yeah, no, we're in the middle of the mess, right? Where
Yeah.
I think of it that we're actually experiencing the end of the patriarchy,
Mm.
um, which hasn't served anybody, men or women, because when we look at the fact that 3/4 of the suicides in the U.S. are committed by middle-aged white men, the
Mhm.
system is obviously not working for men either.
right.
Yeah.
So have we defined it yet? No, I don't think we want to go back to matriarchy. I think we want balance. I think we want
Mhm.
equilibrium. And we haven't figured out yet what these roles mean. And obviously, like you're pointing to, Judy, is like we have to expand the definition of what it means to be a man in the 21st century. And in the Power Book, I devote a whole chapter to that because it is a really, really critical thing to start thinking of what it means to be a man in a different way.
So, how can people get in touch with you if they would like to avail themselves of what you have to offer?
Great. Well, both books are available on Amazon. They can also be ordered at your local bookstore if you want to support your local bookstore. In terms of reaching me, probably the website is the best way to do that, and it's soulfulpower.com. SOULFULPOWER.com. And from there, they can either email me directly or access my social media.
Great. Well, we'll make sure to put those links on the notes for this episode. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Christian.
Thank you
Nice to
very
meet
much,
you.
and thanks for doing the show because it is necessary as we're all navigating these transitional times.
So true.
Indeed. Thank you.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that interview with Christian.
Indeed. So, if you would like to contact us, Judy, tell people how they might go about doing that.
Yes, you can go to our website, ctn7.com. That's the number 7, ctn7. And if you have a topic that you would like us to talk about on our show, or if you have a question for us to talk about on our show, or if you personally would like to be on our podcast, there are ways to do that on ctn7.com.
There are indeed, and we have some really interesting guests coming up. I'm not going to give any promissory notes in advance, but we're scheduling a few really interesting folks. So yes, do that and buy our books and all that kind of stuff.
Follow us, like us, tell your friends.
All of the above. And so until next time,
Remember, be kind,
don't panic.
and have faith.